Hello students, welcome to Smart Solutions. I am Nikhil, your science mentor. So today we will start with first chapter, crop production and management. Paheli and Bhujo went to their uncle's house during summer vacations. Their uncle is a farmer. One day they saw some tools like khurpi, sickle, shovel, plug, etc. in the field. So two children, basically Paheli and Bhujo, went to their uncle's home during summer vacations and they found some equipments that are used in farm basically. So as we move forward in this chapter, you will see what this khurpi, sickle, shovel, plug, etc. what all these things mean. Okay. So you have learned that all living organisms require food. Plant can make their food themselves. Can you recall how green plants synthesize their own food? So in the earlier standards, you have seen that all the living plants and animals required food to get energy, and of these all living things, only plants are able to synthesize their food with the help of the process known as photosynthesis. Animals, they depend on these plants for their food. So primarily, why do we eat food? So you already know that energy from food is utilized by organisms for carrying out their various body functions such as digestion, respiration and excretion. So three major functions: digestion, respiration, excretion, then movement of person or animal from one place to another. So for carrying out all these day-to-day activities of an organism, every organism requires food, that is energy. So we get energy from our food. In order to provide food for large population, regular production, proper management and distribution is necessary. But as you see that since there is a huge population on this planet, the food has to be in abundance. If there is no food in abundance, then there would be shortage of food and starvation will occur. So proper food, enough amount or enough quantity of food should be produced. So in order to produce such a huge amount of crops or food, there should be proper technique, proper management, and even after production the food has to be distributed to all the people. So production, management and distribution are the three major functions in addition to food production. Okay. So agricultural practices, so till 10,000 BCE people were nomadic, that is, the human race was not settled in a single place. They were moving or wandering from one place to another in search of food and shelter. They were wandering in group from place to place in search of food and shelter. They ate raw fruits and vegetables and started hunting animals for food. So initially they were just eating raw fruits and vegetables and also eating animals, but that too without cooked, because possibly during that era invention of fire would have not occurred. So later they could cultivate land and produce rice, wheat and other food crops. Thus was born agriculture. But as the human being moved ahead, centuries would have passed, and then he would have realized that since my group is now growing in size and I am unable to collect food from nature in the required quantity, he would have settled at some place and started cultivating some crop which will give him high yield, so that he could um, use this crop for his complete family or society in general. So in that fashion the agricultural activity could have taken place. So when plants of same kind are cultivated at one place on large scale, it is called a crop. So what is crop? Crop is something or plant that is cultivated on a specific land or on a land in large quantities or in large scale. Say for example, we have different crops like wheat, jowar, bajra. All these crops are grown in large quantities on land. Okay, so any crop that is grown at a place on large scale, it is called crop. So any other variety of plant that grows in between these crops, they are known as weeds. We remove these weeds, right? We don't allow weeds to grow. For example, crop of wheat means that all the plants growing in the field are that of wheat. So whenever we are doing wheat production, our intention is that all the crops should be wheat. Any other plant which is other than wheat, we remove that plant. You already know that crops are of different types like cereals, vegetables, and fruits. These can be classified on the basis of seasons in which they grow. So, in India, particularly, we have three seasons: summer, winter, and rainy. And as you may have observed that during these different seasons in India, we produce different crops, right? So, there could be some cereals, vegetables, and even fruits that grow in different regions in different seasons. Say, for example, apples are grown mostly in Jammu and Kashmir, rice is grown in southern part of India, wheat is grown in northern part of India during winters, cashew nut or all the dry fruits they are grown in humid and high rainfall climates like Konkan. So these are the different regions where different crops are grown in different seasons. India is a vast country. The climatic conditions like temperature, humidity, and rainfall vary from one region to another. Accordingly, there is a rich variety of crop grown in different parts of country. Despite this diversity, two broad cropping patterns can be identified. So, as we know that the geographical extent of India is quite vast, altitude, terrain, location, these and climate even, all these factors they contribute to the changes in climate or different climates, and hence because of these different climates different crops are grown in different regions. uh, though the climate is distributed as summer winter rainy, but for agricultural purpose we can distribute this in two broad categories, that is Kharif and Rabi. So the crop which are sown in rainy seasons they are called as Kharif crop. The crop that we grow in rainy seasons are known as Kharif crop. The rainy season in India is generally from June to September, and in India we observe rainy season from June to September. So the major crops grown are paddy, maize, soybean, groundnut, and cotton. So all these crops they are known as Kharif crop. Why? Because they are grown in rainy season. The second classification is Rabi crop. The crops grown in the winter season, that is October to March, are called Rabi crops. So all the crops that are grown in winter season are known as Rabi crops. So few examples like wheat, gram, pea, mustard, and linseed. These are the examples of Rabi crops. So beside this, pulses and vegetables are also grown during summer at many places. Mm, so in general, you can see that in India, major two crops, Kharif, Rabi, and in addition to this, sometimes some crops are also grown in summer, like some vegetables or pulses. So the next point is best practices of crop production. So you may have known that there are different activities for producing any crop. So we will be looking into what are the different activities involved in producing any crop. So cultivation of crop involves several activities undertaken by farmers over a period of time. You may find that these activities are similar to those carried out by a gardener or even by you when you grow ornamental plants in your house. These activities or tasks are referred to as agricultural practices, which are enlisted below. So whenever we want to have some production in a farm, we have to do certain activities. There is a sequence of some activities that is to be done. So you may have practiced in your gardens or even with some plants in your house, like how to take care of this, how do we water, how do we sow, and how do we cut the leaves, how do we give them different shapes. So these are all the basic activities. So in general, we will see what all activities are applicable in agriculture. So the seven most important activities that are involved in agriculture are: first is preparation of soil. So how do we prepare soil? What are the requirements of a good soil for taking a particular crop? How to make soil good fertile or how to add manure. Second is sowing. So after the soil is prepared, tilling and all these things are done, then we add some seeds of the crop that we want to grow, so that is known as sowing. Third is adding manure and fertilizers after sowing the plant. Depending upon the crop, there is requirement of different manures and fertilizers for this crop, so accordingly we will add some manure and fertilizer. Irrigation is done intermittently, twice thrice as per the requirement of the crop. So there are different Types of irrigations. So we will be going deeply into understanding how this irrigation is done and what are its types. Protection from weeds. So it may happen that during sowing there could be some weeds of crop foreign crop in the sense the one that is not a crop but which will now be called as weed because that is unintended to grow. So we will be looking out how these weeds are avoided or how to take care of these weeds. Then comes harvesting. When the crop is completely grown, the period of harvesting is when we cut down the fruits of these plants in general. After harvesting, the harvested material needs to be stored and transported. So that is also a part of agricultural chain. So all these activities now we are going to see in details. So first is preparation of soil. So the preparation of soil is the first step before growing a crop. This is the first and most important step in agricultural, which means we are turning down the soil. We are loosening it with the help of some plug. This allows the root to penetrate deeply into the soil. So why we are doing this loosening of soil? So this is because whenever we are sowing some seeds in the soil, these seeds will sprout and its roots has to go deep into the soil to get moisture and water. So in order to facilitate the deep penetration of these plants into the soil is loosened. The loose soil allows the root to breathe easily even when they go deep into the soil. So as these root penetrate deeply into the soil, they get enough food and oxygen to breathe. Why do the loosening of soil allow the root to breathe easily? So you may have a question that why after loosening the soils will get easy to breathe. The loosening soil helps in growth of earthworm and microbes present in the soil. These organisms are friends of the farmer since the farmer turns and loosen the soil and add humus to it. But why the soil needs to be turned and loosed? So as we know that there are some earthworms and microbes present in the soil. So whenever we are loosening this soil, we make this earthworm and microbes good space so that they can live there, make a movement. And these microbes and earthworms, they are the friends of plants in general. So what they will do, they will bring with them certain minerals from the undersoil and help the plant root to capture these and suck up. So in this way these earthworm and microbes also plays some role helping plant in its growth. But why the soil needs to be turned and loosed? So again, earthworms are there, microbes are there, plant need breathing. In order to have deep penetration we loosen soil, but still why loosening? So you have learned in the previous class that soil contains mineral, water, air and some living organisms in addition. In addition, dead plants and animals get decomposed by soil organisms. In this way, various nutrients in the dead organisms are released back into the soil. These nutrients are again absorbed by the plants. So as you have seen that various small crops, you can say small plants or dead plants, animals, all they get decomposed into the soil. So when they get decomposed, the various nutrients in the body of these plants and animals, they again get mixed into this soil. So all these animals and plants, they have grown from soil and again they release all the material that is nutrients into the soil. So this is the process. So now if you see in these buried plants or animals there are some nutrients. So if we now loosen the soil, it may happen that all these nutrients which were now beneath at a much higher depth, they will come to the surface where the roots of plant can easily suck them. Since only a few centimeters of this top layer of soil supports plant growth, turning and loosening of soil bring the nutrient rich soil to the top so that plant can use these nutrients. This turning and loosening of soil is very important for cultivation of crop. So in general what it says is that the crops are grown on very less height. That is, if you can recall or if you understand, say for example there is a first layer of humus, below there is a sand, below there is a rocky layer. So the plants basically they grows in this humus layer, right? So in order to add or mix all the nutrients into this humus layer, the plants or the soil in general, it is loosened. The process of loosening and turning of soil is called tilling or plugging. This is done by using a plug. So how do we loosen this soil? We use some plugging methods called as tilling or any of the instruments that will help in loosening this soil. Plugs are made up of wood or iron. So these plugs, they are basically made up of wood or iron. So let me show the picture of plug. So this is basically a plug. You can see that there are basically two major parts. It is plug shear and plug shaft. So this is used for pulling, and this will be penetrated or go below the soil where it will loosen. So you can see over here again, this is the plug. These are two axes used for pulling this plug, and the farmer is helping or giving direction to this axis. So this is the underground part. You can see over here some soil is being loosened. So in this fashion, the soil will be tilled or plugged to make it loose. If the soil is very dry, it may need water before plugging. Yeah. So you may have seen that they sometimes, due to less moisture or less water in the land, there are cracks developed. So it will be very difficult for a farmer to plug this field when there are cracks developed, when there is very less water content in the farm. So whenever such situation arises, there is requirement that initially the farm has to be watered, and then only it can be plugged. The plugged field may have big clumps of soil called crumbs. It is necessary to break these crumbs. Leveling the field is beneficial for sowing as well as for irrigation. So whenever plugging is done, actually the clumps are formed. So what are clumps? Clumps are the big sized soil buckets, you can say, or clumps. That is, so these clumps, basically, if the clumps are retained in the soil, plants cannot grow better. So you need to break these clumps. So further secondary treatment of these clumps is done. Once the clumps are broken, next leveling of this land is done. So leveling, why it is important? So whenever we are watering the crop, there has to be a certain level so that water can flow from one part to other part of the field. So in that fashion, leveling is done with a gradual slope given. Leveling of soil is done with the help of leveler. So there are some instruments again for leveling the field. Sometimes manure is added to soil before tilling. This helps in proper mixing of manure with soil. The soil is moistened before sowing. So sometimes it may happen that farmer may add manure to his field before tilling the soil, so that the complete soil and manure will get mixed properly. Okay, so the second comes is agricultural implements. So now we will understand what are agricultural implements. Before sowing the seed, it is necessary to break soil clumps to get better yield. So we have already seen that these clumps of soils, they need to be broken down to make soil in a very fine particles so that proper yield can be achieved. This is done with the help of various tools. The main tools used for this purpose are plug, hoe and cultivator. So plug, hoe and cultivator are the instruments which will help us loosening and breaking these clumps. So what is a plug? So as you have seen in this diagram, this is the plug. This is being used since ancient times for tilling the soil. So these instruments, it has origin very earlier in the human development phase. So since then the same instruments is being used, but nowadays instead of ox we use some machineries like tractors, and may use some other machineries too. So adding fertilizers to the crop, removing the weeds and turning the soil, these are basically the activities done during plugging. This is made up of wood and is drawn by a pair of bulls or other animals, horse and camels. So this plug, basically it is made up of wood, and this shaft, sorry, this share could be made up of sometimes of metal like iron, but basically this shaft is made up of wood. So horses or camels or even bulls are used for drawing this plug. It contains a strong triangular iron strip called plug share. So as discussed, this is the top tip, and this is made up of iron which will penetrate into the earth. The main part of the plug is a long log of wood which is called the plug shaft. This long bar which you can see, it is called as plug shaft. So this is basically the plug shaft, and the plug share is unseen over here because this is now penetrated into the soil. Okay, there is a handle at one end of the shaft. The other end is attached to a beam which is placed on the bull's neck. So you can see over here, this is the beam connected to this plug shaft, and this beam is now tied to the bull's or ox or camel's neck so that they can pull them. One pair of bulls and a man can easily operate the plug. So in order to operate this plug, at least two bulls and a person or a farmer is required. The indigenous wood plug is increasingly being replaced by iron plugs nowadays. So initially there were only wood plugs, but nowadays wood plugs are replaced by some iron plugs as well. Okay, so now let us look at a hoe. What a hoe is. So you can see over here a hoe. Uh, this is something similar to plug as well. So it has basically a bend plate over here, a grip where the farmer can hold this beam. This beam will be tied to the neck of bulls or oxes or camels, and this is the rod. Okay, so what it does, hoe will help in breaking the clumps of the soil that were initially formed. So hoe is a simple tool which is used for removing weeds and for loosening the soil, as we have seen. It is a long rod of wood or iron. A strong, broad and bent plate of iron is fixed to one of its end and works like a blade. It is pulled by animals. So again, similar, its operation is similar to plug, and two major functions it performs. It initially helps in loosening the soil, and also it is used in removing weeds, right? So the next is cultivator. Nowadays plugging is done by tractor driven cultivator. The use of cultivator saves labor and time. So cultivator, so what it means is any of the machine that can be used for cultivation. So basically nowadays, instead of ox and bullocks, people use machineries like tractor, which will help in reducing the time. Okay, so once the farm is completely prepared, so now you have understand how the farm is prepared. So first we use some plugging, then hose are used, some manure is being added if required, watering is done if the soil is very hard, leveling is done. So after all these processes, now we can say that the land is ready for sowing. So once the land preparation activity is completed, we will see how the sowing is done. Sowing is an important part of crop production because sowing good quality, clean and healthy seeds of good variety are selected. So sowing, what we do, we actually sow the seeds. So this seeds selection has to be done properly. Good quality of seeds, clean seeds and healthy seeds are to be chosen so that we will get good yield. Farmer prefer to use seeds which give high yield, right? So there is some activity given to you. You can perform this. Take a beaker and fill half of it with water. Put a handful of wheat seeds and stir well. Wait for some time. So what you have to do is you have to take a beaker. You have to fill that beaker half with water and then put some seeds into it so that, and wait for some time. So what you can see, after some time the seeds will start sprouting, right? So some root system, shoot system will start growing to these seeds. So what are the seeds which floats on the water? Would these be lighter or heavier than those which sinks? Why would they be lighter? Yeah, whatever we discussed, that was actually, it will take some time, like 2 3 days. But before that, there is a major observation that whenever you add some seeds to the water, some seeds will float and some will sink, right? So all the seeds that are floating, they are no more good seeds. You should not use them for sowing because they are not healthy seeds. And all the seeds that have settled, they are the good seeds. So you should only use the seeds that have settled at the bottom. This is a good method for separating good healthy seeds from the damaged ones. Before sowing, one of the important tasks is to know about the tools used for sowing seeds. So there are different tools used for sowing, so we will look at them one by one. So traditional tools, the tools used traditionally for sowing seed is shaped like a funnel. So you can see over here there are two farmers shown. There is something of the shape like funnel, there is a tube going into the ground, there is again some instrument which we cannot see but which is penetrating into the ground. So what will happen, these farmers they will add seeds over here which will flow through this pipe, and there is some arrangement like this wherein the seeds will be added to the soil, and as this moves forward the seeds will be added in this fashion through this length. Okay, so the tools used traditionally for sowing seed is shaped like a funnel. The seeds are filled into the funnel, passed down through two or three pipes having sharp edges. These end pierce into the soil and places seeds there. So see, here only they have indicated one pipe, but there could be multiple pipes and it has got a sharp edge so that the seeds can be sown or pierced into the soil. Piercing means pushing down into the soil or making a hole and then adding there. So that is the meaning of piercing. So you may have seen nose piercing, ear piercing. So the same fashion the seeds are being pierced now into the soil. Okay, yeah. So basically this is the one that we are talking about. This is a very conventional, this is a modern method. This is a big funnel and number of pipes. These are the piercing instruments, you can say. From here the seed will come and fall on the within the ground. Okay, so these are basically the two outer wheels of these to help it for transportation or moving. And basically see these 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, these are basically the piercing arms or piercing heads of these pipes. Seed drills. Nowadays, the seed drills is used for sowing with the help of tractor. This sows the seeds uniformly at equal distance and depth. It ensures that seed gets covered by the soil after sowing. This protects seed from being eaten by birds. Sowing by using a seed drill saves time and labor. So if you see the previous picture over here, they have shown only one tube. Rather, over here you can see multiple tubes. So if we go with this method, we will require less labor, less time, and equally the seeds will be distributed, because see the distance between these two pipes is same. All these distances are equally maintained. Plus, once the seed is pierced into the seeds will be covered by soil. This is automatically done using this instrument. The covering of seeds after piercing is important. Why? Because if we don't do, the birds could eat up all the seeds. In order to avoid that, this instrument shall help in doing so. So appropriate distance between the seeds is necessary to avoid overcrowding of plants. So as we see, the distance between the two crops, they should not be too high, should not even be too low, so that the equal or good amount of enough amount of distance is maintained. Okay, sufficient sunlight, nutrients and water from the soil. At time a few plant may have to be removed to prevent overcrowding. In case if there is overcrowding, then some crop or some plants has to be removed so that other plants can grow healthily. After sowing, we saw the second activity. Now sowing, how it is done. So now after the sowing is done, we have to add some manure and fertilizer. This is the third step in our agriculture cultivation. So how is this done? Substances which are added to soil in the form of nutrients for the healthy growth of plants are called manure or fertilizers. So basically, what are manure and fertilizers? So as we see that we require food for getting energy, in the same way plants require some food. So where this food comes from, or where does this nutrients, vitamins, all these things comes from? So they come from manure and fertilizers. So we get information from various agencies like government, agricultural colleges, like for particular which crop which fertilizer and manure has to be used. Okay, so soil supplies mineral nutrients to the crop crop plant. These nutrients are essential for growth of plant. In certain areas farmers grow crop after crop in the same field. So sometimes what happens that a single farmer can use different minerals to the plants. The minerals that are essential for the plants are added once one crop is taken. The same land farmer uses for second crop. So what will happen if he is adding some mineral for present crop? It may happen that 100% of the mineral is not absorbed and some mineral could have been retained into the soil which second crop would absorb. So the field is never left uncultivated or fallen. Imagine what happens to the nutrients. So continuous cultivation of crops makes the soil poor of nutrients. Therefore, the farmer have to add more manure to the field to replenish the soil with nutrients. So in general, what will happen if the farmer continuously takes crops, first crop, then second crop, then third crop throughout the year, but if he does not add nutrients, then what will happen? First crop will eat up maximum nutrient, very less nutrients will be left over to second crop, and it may happen that for the third crop there would be no nutrients. So if there are no nutrients, plants cannot grow healthy. So in order to avoid this, farmer have to add nutrients for each crop. Okay, manure is an organic substance obtained from decomposition of plants and animals waste. So what is manure? Manure is organic substance which is decomposed of plants and animal waste. So you may have seen the leaves, stems of the plants, they are decomposed and some manure is obtained. It could be due to vermicomposting, or even you may have seen like there is some poultry waste which also acts as manure, the cow dung which is waste from animals who eat plants. So cow dung, vermicompost, and even the waste from poultries. So these products, they are basically the manures which are high in nutrients. So these are added to the soil. Farmer dumps plants and animal waste into the pit at open place and allow it to decompose. Sometimes farmer himself allow these plants and animals to be decomposed at some place, and after the activities of microorganisms, the decomposition or the manure is formed, which then can be used in farm. The decomposition is caused by some microorganisms. The decomposed matter is used as organic manure. You have already learned about vermicompost in class 6. So you already have an idea of vermicompost, how it is done. So there are some earthworms which eat this material, and when they excrete this material, it is a good manure, right? So you can again go to the class 6 text and understand in details what or how this vermicomposting activity is done. Okay, so there is again an activity now. So let us look at this activity, what is to be done. Take moong or gram seeds and germinate them. So you have to take either a moong or gram seeds and germinate them. Select 3 equal size seedlings. Take 3 empty glasses or similar vessels, make them ABC. So you have to take 3 glasses, mark them as ABC. To glass A, add liter amount of soil mixed with little cow dung manure. So to glass A, you will take some soil and add some cow dung to it. In class B, put the same amount of soil, mix with a little urea. In second glass, you have to add soil, but you have to add now urea. You have to take glass C, you have to add same amount of soil. So in general what you are doing is throughout these 3 glasses you are adding same amount of soil. Okay, and in first you have added manure, in second you have added urea, and in glass C you are adding nothing, only soil. Now pour the same amount of water in each of the glass and plant the seedlings in them. What you have to do, you have to pour some water equally into these glasses, and now you have to plant seedling. So after adding, you have to place them in a safe place and water them daily for 7 to 10 days. Observe the growth. So you have to water these crops regularly for 7 to 10 days and you have to observe what happens to them. So now you can see over here A, B and C, right? In A they have grown, okay, good. In B also they have grown, but in C you see that the growth is very less, right? So why do these happen? Let us now try to investigate. um, so first observation, did plants in all the glasses grow at the same pace? So do you think that all these are growing at the same speed? Obviously no. Which glass showed better growth of the plants? In which glass was the growth faster? So among these three glasses, which is the glass that has shown the highest growth, and which is the plant that has shown healthiest growth, right? So what do you think? Is it C? Obviously no. Is it B? We do C. Yeah. Is it A? They are fine, but not as compared to B, right? So let us see. Fertilizers are chemicals which are rich in particular nutrients. How are they different from manure? Fertilizers are produced in factories. Some examples of fertilizers are urea, ammonia sulfate, superphosphate, phosphate, potash, NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So as we see over here, in glass A we have added manure, in glass B we had added fertilizer, and in glass C we had added nothing. The one where the fertilizer was added, the crop is healthier and is growing faster as compared to the crop where manure was added. Okay, so why is it so? Because fertilizers, water, so this is because of fertilizers, adding the fertilizers to the crop. So what is different between fertilizers and manure? So we have seen that how is manure prepared? Manure is prepared from decomposition of plants and animal waste. Okay, so it has got a limited nutrients, but in case of fertilizers, fertilizers are prepared in factories. So what are these? These are nothing but the chemical compositions. They are made up of different nutrients or different elements such as urea, ammonium sulfate, superphosphate, potash, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So all these ingredients are added to these fertilizers. So what will happen? These fertilizers can enhance the ability of the crop to grow. The use of fertilizers has helped farmers to get better yield of crops such as wheat, paddy, and maize. But excessive use of fertilizers has made the soil less fertile. Fertilizers have also become a source of water pollution. So what is happening is, see, these fertilizers, they help in plant in fast growth and healthy growth. So they are used in the agriculture. But sometimes what happens, due to excessive use of these fertilizers, it creates soil pollution. Fertilizers also have become a source of water pollution even, right? So what will happen, sometimes they also create water pollution in addition to the soil pollution. Therefore, in addition to maintain the fertility of soil, we have to substitute fertilizers with organic manure or leave the field uncultivated in between two crops. So what will happen, see, if we continuously go on taking crop in the same field, there would be huge depositions of these fertilizers into the soil. After some time, what will happen, the soil will completely lose its fertility and we cannot take any further crop. So in order to avoid this, what should be done, we should keep some blank space or empty land should be kept empty after each crop. So what will happen, if we say for example take first crop, then there should be some lag period, don't take any crop for some time, allow the land to be to be still. Just you can, what you can do is you can loosen the soil sometimes if required. You can allow the land to suck some sunlight, and also within this period what will happen, the soil or the unused fertilizers were there, they will be decomposed either or get completely mixed, so that soil does not lose its fertility. And after some period, when the soil is left tilled, open to the atmosphere, to the sunlight, the microbes would have digested all the unused fertilizers or would have broken down, and now this land can be used for taking the second crop. So in this fashion, what you can do, you can reduce the soil and water pollution and help retain the nutritional value or the nutrients into the soil, making it a fertile. Second way is, instead of using fertilizers, see, there are drawbacks of this fertilizer, right? So why do we use that? We need them because we need to have high production, right? But the second option can now be, instead of using these fertilizers, if we can enhance the ability of this manure which we were using and use this manure very precisely, that could be the second option. The use of manures improves soil texture as well as its water retaining capacity. It replenishes the soil with nutrients. So manure not only provides nutrients, but it also help in retaining water into the soil. So instead of just water draining out of the soil, manure also help in retaining the water. Another method of replenishing the soil with nutrients is through crop rotation. This can also be done by growing different crops alternately. The nutritional value of the land can also be maintained by crop rotation. That is, you should take different crops during different seasons. This can be done by growing different crops alternately. Earlier, farmers in the North India used to grow legumes as fodder in one season and wheat in the next season. So this is the example from North India where people were growing legumes in one season and then wheat in the next season. So that is alternate cropping was done. This happens in the replenishment of soil with nitrogen. So what will happen with this? This will help in increasing the nitrogen content of the soil. Farmers are being encouraged to adopt this practice. So all the farmers should practice in this way. In the previous class you have learned about rhizobium bacteria. So you have also learned about the rhizobium bacteria, how it functions. So they are present in the nodes of the roots of leguminous plants. They fix atmospheric nitrogen. So what happens is rhizobium bacteria, they have ability to absorb nitrogen from the atmosphere and store it in the plant's root, that is in the leguminous plants. Right, so that was about fertilizers. So let us look at few of the advantages of manure. The organic manure is considered better than fertilizers. Why? Okay, so I think before taking these advantages, let us look at the difference between fertilizers and manures. Fertilizer is a man-made inorganic salt. Okay, so see, these fertilizers, they are not natural products, they are man-made organic salts. So as we have seen in the geography in class 8 chapter 1 resources, that there are some resources which are man-made and there are some resources which are natural. So fertilizers are man-made resources. Okay, so manure is a natural substance obtained by the decomposition of cattle dung and plant residues. So what are these manures? These are nothing but the natural decomposition of what? Plants and dead animals. Fertilizer is prepared in factories. So where are these fertilizers prepared? They are prepared in factories. Okay, and manure can be prepared in fields. Where can the manure be prepared? Manure can be prepared at any place. Basically they are prepared in fields of the farmers. Fertilizers do not provide any humus to the soil. These fertilizers basically, so these are inorganic compounds, they do not provide any humus to the soil, whereas manure provide lot of humus to the soil, and we know that humus is required for plants to grow, right? So tell me, if we go only on adding these fertilizers, can the soil maintain its fertility? Obviously no, but with less addition of this manure only, the humus level will increase and the cropping can be done very betterly. Fertilizers are very rich in plant nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. Since these are made in factories, lot amount of chemicals can be added which are required for plants growth. So the production will be high with these fertilizers since they are rich in various nutrients. See, manure, they are made up of plants and animal waste, so there are some limitations on the nutrients values of these plants. Okay, and so now we have to look at some advantages of manure. The organic manure is considered better than fertilizers. This is because, so as you can recall that we have seen the difference between fertilizers and manure. So we have gone through this and we surely find that manure is sometimes better as compared to fertilizer. So this is because it enhances water holding capacity. The first thing, manure helps in adding water holding capacity to the soil. Second, it makes soil prone porous, due to which exchange of gases become easily. Second is that due to use of this manure, the soil become porous and it helps in gas exchange. The third is increasing in the number of friendly microbes. Thirdly, due to the addition of this manure, a lot number of microbes add to the soil which helps plants in proper growth. And next is it improves the texture of the soil, and further it increases humus and therefore it increases the texture of soil. So fertilizers are required, yes, sometimes they are required, but only fertilizers will not do the work. Manure as against fertilizers is a much more better option, and we must always use manures wherever possible instead of fertilizers. So next is irrigation. So let us continue learning this chapter. I think for this lecture we will stop over here. In the next lecture we will look at the irrigation. So up till then, if you have any queries on the subject that we have studied till now, please feel free to write in comments and I'll be happy to clear all your doubts. Thank you, and please do subscribe our channel and see the second part of this video which will be adding shortly. Thank you.